3, scene 1 of Macbeth, this terrific play, which describes, it's a character study in ambition, and looks at a man who is thoroughly admirable in some ways. So the events described in it are famous with the witches and the murders and all that, justly so. But as much as anything, it's a study in virtuous character, because Macbeth is a man of valor. That's how we meet him. And when he's tempted and gives into the temptation to murder his host and his king, he's fully conscious of the significance of that act for his own soul. And although his wife seems to be more masculine than he, or at least those are the terms in which she presents it. You need to man up. Stop worrying about the consequences of these actions. If you're an ambitious man of valor, which all men of action are, men of war, they're there for reasons of, they're going to test their courage in order to attain a station in life, a rank that will be a reflection of their courageous character. She's suggesting that he do the same here, but the doing the same here means transgressing a certain boundary, and it's the boundary of the moral law, and also one in terms of loyalty. And he purports to try and become the king through his own actions. And in this, and I think I made this comment early on, Shakespeare is trying to explore the significance and effect of witchcraft on people's actions, because his intended audience here is King James, and not just Elizabeth, as we've seen thus far in the plays we've studied. There's a new monarch, and James is very much, first of all, his relatives are mentioned amongst those who are involved in the play, but also he himself is very concerned about the effect of witchcraft in his kingdom, in subverting his rule. Very much believes in supernatural agency. And so Shakespeare, when he writes this, caters to his royal audience, but also then involves all of the issues that we've seen are of interest to him in all of his plays, namely the interactions, the social interactions and their moral framework, and the matter of degree and hierarchy and so forth. And this play subverts all hierarchy, but it does it by force. Now, the question that could be posed at the outset is, that's how Macbeth gets the rank that he does, through force. He's a man of war. He is given the title of Thane precisely because he commits valorous actions, which it will include killing the king's enemies. But there he's doing it in the service of the king. This will be against the king. So there's a difference between war and murder being drawn by Shakespeare, which our contemporary, at least from the left, political left, has a great deal of difficulty distinguishing between murder and killing. And we'll say that all killing is effectively murder, or all murder is effectively just a form of killing, and therefore, in order to be morally consistent, we have to avoid all killing. In which case, we can never and should never go to war, because killing is forbidden in Scripture and in our sense of morality. And so they will then extend from that to not only human actors, but also talk about the animal kingdom. So we ought to avoid eating animals and killing animals, because killing is always wrong. So there's a sort of a moral argument there that's extended across that ignores the situation here, and Shakespeare is not buying into that. He's saying there is a distinct difference between killing the king's enemies in battle, which is valorous, and killing the king, which is not only wicked, but subverts the whole moral order. And one doesn't. Killing the enemies of the king in a just war are valorous actions, without doubt, in Shakespeare's mind. And note that I did say the conditions are a just war. And the just war is what? Well, there was a rebellion in the ranks and an attempt to subvert the king and his rule. And Macbeth was defending the king in his honor and was rewarded for that. So what he does is very much like the erstwhile Thane of Cawdor. He's a rebel as well. And so there has been two Thanes of Cawdor mentioned in the play, and both of them are rebels against the king. One of them fails, one of them succeeds, and we're looking at the successful one. So it's a study in not only the degeneration of a good moral man, but also a study in evil then. And this is characteristic of all of Shakespeare's great plays. The four great tragedies: Macbeth, King Lear, Othello, and Hamlet. They're studies in character and to some degree studies in evil. So they enter into that area of discussions of human conduct that will look at evil from a Christian vantage point, for that matter. So explorations thereof. And for that reason are considered great. So in Act 3, Scene 1, we have the note that when we left off, actually, let me just go back just a segment here in this reference to Ross. And who's he talking to? The old man. We see that Macbeth's violation of nature in usurping and killing the king has been followed in the natural sphere by lower animals eating higher animals. So here's the illustration. Ross. Just go one row to the old man. 70 I can remember well, within the volume of which time I have seen hours dreadful and things strange, but this sore night hath trifled former knowings rather. Ah, good Father, thou seest the heavens as troubled with man's act. So here's his explanation for that. There is a supernatural, cosmological, astrological, if you will, consequence of human action. Now, I've talked about that in the Elizabethan world picture already, I think. The idea that the planets influence what happens on the earth. But here it's seen as going both ways. What's happening in the human sphere has an effect on the world around us. And so it bears the sign of original iniquity, just like when Adam transgresses against God's command. It's not just Adam and Eve that fall, but the whole created order falls with Adam and Eve, so that we get changes in the world around us. And in Scripture, we can also read that God says of Cain that his brother Abel's blood cries out from the ground. Other references to the iniquities of nations polluting the very earth on which they walk. And so Shakespeare, I think, is speculating here in this scene, but to some degree reflecting a biblical understanding that actions between humans do have actions beyond the merely human sphere, which we don't normally think about, at least in the modern Enlightenment secular framework. We don't actually think that whole countries can be plagued by the immoral actions of human beings on the earth. And that's mentioned here. But so this is Ross. Ah, good Father, thou seest the heavens as troubled with man's act, threaten his bloody stage. By the clock 'tis day, and yet dark night strangles the traveling lamp. Is it night's predominance or the day's shame that darkness does the face of earth entomb when living light should kiss it? 'Tis unnatural, says the old man, even like the deed that's done. On Tuesday last, a falcon, towering in her pride of place, was by a mousing owl hawked at and killed. So a lesser bird of prey killed a greater bird of prey, just like obviously an analogy between Macbeth and Malcolm, the king. And Ross adds, and Duncan's horse is a thing most strange and certain, beauteous and swift. The minions of the race turned wild in nature, broke their stalls, flung out, contending against obedience as they would make war with mankind. 'Tis said they eat each other. They did so. to the amazement of mine eyes that looked upon it. So that commentary between Rossa and an old man reflects the extra human significance of human actions in a way that fits with the Elizabethan world picture that is so much part of Shakespeare's framework. So he regularly makes comparisons of kingdoms to gardens, but then gardens can also be kingdoms. That goes both ways. It's an analogy that goes in two directions. What happens in the human moral sphere will have effect in the natural, what we call the natural world. Shakespeare would not call it the natural word simpliciter the way romantics would, but he does talk about unnatural things, by which he means immoral. Although morality doesn't apply to animals. Animals don't have a sense of moral right and wrong, but they do tend to follow the order of nature, but in this case, they're violating the order of nature. Horses eat one another. Well, horses don't eat meat at all. So there's a sense of a moral analogy being drawn here in the understanding that fits with the understanding of the witches as well. They're transgressing a boundary that God has set in place so that creatures don't do these things ever, never, ever, ever, except they are. So there's something wicked that's being portrayed on the canvas of Macbeth's, or Shakespeare's play Macbeth here. And I just wanted to draw your attention to that. In Act 3, Scene 1 picks up that then. So Scene 1 is Forays, the palace. Banquo enters and reflects on what has transpired thus far. And we have here a soliloquy which will express to the audience Banquo's state of mind about what has thus far transpired. Remember, Banquo was there when Macbeth heard the witches prophesy what would become of him. And so he's encapsulating what the audience ought to know thus far already anyway, but puts it in his words. Thou hast it now, king, cawdor, glamis, all, as the weird woman promised, and I fear thou playest most foully for it. Yet it was said, it should not stand in thy posterity, but that myself should be the root and father of many kings. If there come truth from them, as upon thee, Macbeth, their speeches shine, why, by the verities on thee made good, may they not be my oracles as well, and set me up in hope? But hush, no more. So Banquo had the same prophecies given to him, or was there present in the same thing, but has not sought to act upon them. Whereas Macbeth has seized upon prophecies as if what was prophesied were predestined and fated and unavoidable, and there were no harm in doing what the witches had said. So again, Shakespeare is also reflecting on this idea of predestination and fatalism, which is so much of a discussion of human action in Christian circles when we talk about free will and moral conduct and whether we're responsible for our actions. If God has foreseen and predicted and prophesied what will happen, are we actually capable of avoiding that? It's a matter of discussion here as well. And so he says, hush no more. And then Macbeth comes in. So Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, who's now in the guise of a queen, Lennox, Ross, lords, ladies, and tenants. And Macbeth, here's our chief guest. If he had been forgotten, it had been as a gap in our great feast, and all thing unbecoming. Tonight we hold a solemn supper, sir, and I'll request your presence. Now, Banquo also knows something that threatens Macbeth, namely that it's he that is ultimately going to be seated on the throne, and therefore we, the audience, know that Banquo is a serious threat to Macbeth. And given what he's done already towards Malcolm, that Banquo's life is at risk here. And we all know that. So Macbeth knows it, Lady Macbeth knows it, and Banquo knows it. But the other parties don't. So the three of them are aware of what's going on, and the audience with them. But not everybody around them does. So there's that odd sense of being included in a secret on the audience's part that adds a little tension to the scene. So you can imagine, and if you're acting it, you get the sense, and you have to have a sense of those three actors, Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, and Banquo, talking but knowing what they mean, but the others around them not knowing what they mean. So there's a way you have to reflect that in your interactions with one another on stage. But Banquo then speaks and acts, again, given the audience and given the fact that it's the king, acts as if there's nothing untoward that's happened. We're just going to pretend that everything's normal here, and we don't know what's happened here. And Banquo says, "Let your highness command upon me, to the which my duties are with a most indissoluble tie forever knit. Ride you this afternoon? Aye, my good lord. We should have else desired your good advice, which still hath been both grave and prosperous in this day's council. But we'll take tomorrow. Is it far, your ride?" Now at this point, we know the intent of the questions, which is trying to find a situation whereby he can get rid of Banquo. That's in his thoughts, and the audience should be aware of that as well. So there's malice in the question. It's to some degree disguised, but not wholly disguised. "As far, my lord, as will fill up the time twixt this and supper. Go not my horse the better? I must become a borrower of the night for a dark hour or twain. Fail not our feast, my lord, I will not. We here, our bloody cousins, are bestowed," there it is, "in England and in Ireland, not confessing their cruel parricide, filling their hearers with strange invention. But of that tomorrow, when therewithal we shall have cause of state craving us jointly. Hie you to horse then. Adieu, till you return at night. Goes Fleance with you?" Fleance's son. Why is he concerned with Fleance? Because, of course, Fleance will be the one who becomes king. So it's not just oh, by the way, is your son going with you? It's, right. Oh, by the way, is the one prophesied to be the future king going along with you? And his answer, "Aye, my good lord, our time does call upon us. I wish your horses swift and sure of foot, and so I do commend you to their backs." And he goes out. Farewell. "Now, let every man be master of his time," says Macbeth, "till 7 at night. To make society the sweeter welcome, we will keep ourselves till supper time alone. While then, God be with you." All the lords go out, and Macbeth is left alone with the servant. So it says manon, staying in Latin. Macbeth with the servant, and then he gives orders to the servant. "Sirrah, a word with you. Attend those men our pleasure. They are, my lord, without the palace gate. Bring them before us." And then when the servant is out, now we get the little soliloquy on Macbeth's part. To be thus, as he is nothing. But to be safely thus, our fears in Banquo stick deep, and in this his royalty of nature reigns that which would be feared. 'Tis much he dares, and to that dauntless temper of his mind he hath a wisdom that doth guide his valor to act in safety. There is none but he whose being I do fear, and under him my genius is rebuked. As 'twas said, Mark Antony's was by Caesar. He chid the sisters when first they put the name of king upon me, and bade them speak to him. Then prophet-like, they hailed him father to a line of kings. Upon my head they placed a fruitless crown, and put a barren scepter in my grip. Thence to be wrenched with an unlineal hand, no son of mine succeeding. If it be so, for Banquo's issue have I filed my mind, as in defiled my mind. For them, the gracious Duncan, have I murdered, put rancors in the vessel of my peace, only for them, and mine eternal jewel given to the common enemy of man, to make them kings, the seeds of Banquo, kings. So he understands not only the iniquity of what he's done, but the fruitlessness of it. And he understands that his soul has been lost in the process. What a terrible cost. Not only is the throne that he gains not going to be his for very long, but he's done it at the cost of his own immortal soul. What remains open to him is the possibility of repentance, by the way, still. And he will entertain that in lines ahead. But at this point, not even considering it, just considering if what is prophesied is to be true, then there is no outcome. Note that one of the things that Shakespeare is underlining here for us in significance is that somebody who regards prophecy as removing our free will or even our responsibility for our actions is an unchristian way of thinking about these things. You always can have an option of 1, repenting, 2, not doing what you're prophesied to do, and 3, of doing the right thing for God's sake, and he's chosen not to do any of these things. So if you wanted to compare this and contrast it with Oedipus, you will see that there is more freedom in the case of Macbeth to do something genuinely different, but he chooses to act as if he had no choice. That's his choice, however. Whereas in Oedipus, when he ends up murdering his father, killing his mother, he is trying to evade it at all costs and thereby fulfills it. Well, there's a difference between the two, and you ought to compare and contrast the two tragedies in that sense. So let me carry on, finish the thing. But so there's fruitlessness to the action, and yet he still will not rest with this and wants to double down on all the iniquity that he's done thus far and try and secure the throne for himself in killing Banquo and Fleance and so forth. He still has no heirs, though. So this is the thing that's baffling to me, is there's an element even here of total fruitlessness. If you kill Fleance and you kill Banquo, you still have no heirs. Your soul is still damned for the actions that you've done. What's the point of doing this? And to some degree, it's a display of the diabolical thinking of Macbeth at this point. Evil tries to secure the gains done through evil and loses the rationality that would come with doing a good thing. So that his mind is being more and more and more depraved as he seeks to secure the ill-gotten gains of his evil actions. So it's a case study in the psychology of an evil man. He was very good at the beginning, and now he is becoming very evil. And it's happening in front of our eyes on stage. And that's actually a hard thing to portray other than through the words that he is using to describe the situation, which I think are brilliant here. So, rather than so, come fate into the list and champion me to the utterance. Who's there? Enter servant and 2 murderers. Now go to the door and stay there till we call. The servant goes there. Now he speaks to the murderers. Was it not yesterday we spoke together? It was, so please your highness. Well then, now, have you considered of my speeches? Have you considered of my speeches? Know that it was he in the times past which held you so under fortune, which you thought had been our innocent self. This I made good to you in our last conference, passed in probation with you, how you were borne in hand, how crossed the instruments who wrought with them, and all things else that might to half a soul and to a notion crazed say, thus did Banquo. You made it known to us. I did so, and went further, which is now our point of second meeting. Do you find your patience so predominant in your nature that you can let this go? Are you so gospeled to pray for this good man and for his issue, whose heavy hand hath bowed you to the grave and beggars yours forever? We are men, my liege. Aye, in the catalogue ye go for men, as hounds and greyhounds, mongrels, spaniels, curs, shuffs, water rugs, and demi-wolves are clipped all by the name of dogs. The valued file distinguishes the swift the slow, the subtle, the housekeeper, the hunter, everyone, according to the gift which bounteous nature hath in him closed, whereby he does receive particular addition from the bill that writes them all alike, and so of men. Now, if you have a station in the file, not in the worst rank of manhood, say it. And I will put that business in your bosoms, whose execution takes your enemy off, grapples you to the heart and love of us, who wear our health but sickly in his life, which in his death were perfect. So, in case you don't understand the nature of the speech, Macbeth's life comes at the expense of my health. My health being seen here not in a physical health sense, but in the sense of his station in life is secured. The kingship is threatened by this. And if you help me in securing this station of king, you will benefit socially from it. That's what's being offered. So what we get here is an iniquitous aristocracy. Remember, the word aristocrat means the reign of the best, or the power of the best. The crat is the power, and the aristos is the best. The aristocrats are the best, have power. Macbeth would create an aristocracy, but it's actually rooted in the exact opposite of the best. What's the opposite of aristocracy? Kakos? I don't even know what it would be. It's the rule of the most wicked. It's the total inversion of a kingdom. Communism. But communism is a flattening of everything. And there is an element of flattening here, because evil doesn't allow for ranks per se. So if you want to be the best in the kingdom of evil, you have to do the most wicked things, but that actually doesn't elevate you. It just destroys your enemies, and it flattens you, and it removes your moral nature in some sense. So this is
bringing everybody down below you, so that you
pretty much. So the way you become on top of the hill is by basically flattening the hill, so there's nothing left. And that's what he's proposing here, is we'll give you the rank here in this kingdom, but there is no such rank, because it's not ordered in accordance with hierarchy anymore. The hierarchy's gone. But that's what he offers them at any rate. And the second murderer then says, I am one, my liege, whom the vile blows and buffets of the world hath so incensed that I am reckless what I do to spite the world. And I, another, says the first murderer, so weary with disasters, tugged with fortune, that I would set my life on any chance to mend it or to be rid on it. Both of you know Banquo was your enemy. Yes, true, my lord. So he is mine. And in such bloody distance that every minute of his being thrusts against my nearest of life. And though I could with barefaced power sweep him from my sight and bid my will avouch it, yet I must not. For certain friends that are both his and mine, whose loves I may not drop, but wail his fall, who I myself struck down. And thence it is that I to your assistance do make love, for sundry weighted, and masking the business from the common eye for sundry weighty reasons. So I could just wipe him out. I have absolute power. I could do that, but it would come at the expense of my moral sway over the others, and I need to hold on to the vestige of moral action here. So somebody else has to do it, and you are the men that are going to do it. Although there's no practical or there was no moral impediment to Macbeth killing Banquo, there's a practical impediment to it. So there's something of the order of goodness still in the kingdom that he needs to make use of. And what's interesting in this is that this describes to some degree the degeneration in politics, which allows really iniquitous countries to hold their order until it collapses very suddenly at the end, like in Nazi Germany.
Just gonna say
there's an element of rank and station and people believing that they're doing, even though they don't agree with the means, but the outcome of preserving the nation against its opponents. We're going to fight against the enemies of Germany, whatever. So we're willing to do things for that end until there's nothing good left internally, and then the nation sort of collapses in on itself. It's really easy to persuade yourself that you can do the wrong thing for the right reasons. You get into that sort of calculus here. Yes, it's a bad thing that I'm doing, but I do it for the love of my country or for some perceived benefit there. And so what Shakespeare is doing is giving us a moral exploration of doing politics without a moral hierarchy in view. And all sorts of applications can ensue from that. So, and the murderer said, "We shall, my lord, perform what you command us. Though our lives, your spirit shine through you," says Macbeth. At this point, it's almost what Macbeth says is almost the antithesis of how we should understand things. When Macbeth is referring to the spirit shining through them, it's the darkness that emerges from them. They have no spirits to do this. Their corruption is what allows them to contemplate it. But he says nonetheless, "Your spirit shine through you. Within this hour at most, I will advise you where to plant yourselves, acquaint you with the perfect spy of the time, the moment on it, for it must be done tonight, and something from the palace. Always thought that I require clearness, and with him to leave no rubs nor botches in the work. Fleance, his son, that keeps him company, whose absence is no less material to me than it is his father's, must embrace the fate of that dark hour. Resolve yourselves apart. I'll come to you anon. We are resolved, my lord. I'll call upon you straight. Abide within." Murders go out. And a little soliloquy here. It is concluded. "Banquo, thy soul's flight, if it find heaven, must find it out tonight." So the dastardly iniquity of Macbeth's original act of killing the king, he now intends on amplifying through getting rid of Banquo. And in terms of the trajectory, the plot design of Macbeth, like all the tragedies, it keeps getting darker and darker and darker. And it doesn't appear that there's any possibility of any justice in this. So the injustice mounts upon, pile up upon one another, and the play gets blacker and blacker and blacker. And what we lack then at this point is any sense of divine justice. Because thus far, if God is involved in the action, as Shakespeare, the playwright, the Renaissance playwright would surely have known, is not to be seen in the action happening. It just seems that evil is having its way without any possibility that it should be otherwise than that. And that's typical of the plot trajectory of a tragedy. It gets worse and worse and worse. It builds up. And then there's the counter movement towards the purging of that through a just action that sort of undoes all that. But it's not there yet. So it's getting darker and darker and darker. And you will have noticed that there's regular references to darkness and shadows and unnatural actions and so forth. The whole play is shrouded in darkness. Any comments or questions? Yes.
It struck me in an earlier part that Macbeth is somewhat like a Adamic character.
An Adamic, like as an Adam?
Yeah. Like, when Eve approaches him with the, eat this fruit, and he doesn't consider it, and then it's kind of a spiral of curse. It also...
Why Adamic? Why would he be like Adam?
Well, specifically biblically, Adam would be the character that comes to mind for me, for someone who... so Macbeth ought to... I'm going to get into some Shakespearean mindset.
Well, don't give me a long answer if you don't have an immediate... If you can't justify it immediately, it's okay.
Macbeth ought to rule... His household ought not to be directed everywhere by his wife.
Right. Yeah. Well, certainly in the readings of the interactions between Adam and Eve in the Renaissance and the medieval period, it's often Adam is portrayed as a weak husband who's been misdirected by his wife, or has allowed her to lead in the situation to some degree. So that I could see. And then if you wanted to draw a further analogy to it, then Adam has rebelled and to some degree sought to murder his own king, sought to act as if there were no law. So the prohibition not to eat of the tree, well, we can do that by, first of all, eating of the tree, but we're wishing that the Lord of life were actually dead. So you could give an analogy to that here. So you could come up with some sort of reading that would support that type of reading. I think this amplifies the situation considerably from that. And we don't have any sense from reading the Genesis text how evil Adam and Eve are in their actions, but I think we probably should. I don't think it's obvious when you read Genesis that what is transpiring is of such horrific magnitude that what they're doing is plotting to have God dead. But that is what's effectively happening.
Well, one of the things that you don't see is, similar to Macbeth, you don't see Adam actually particularly repentant, because you see in his own sons that discord reigns among them, and the father is not, the actual human father is not there to help his sons govern themselves and to govern that relationship parentally. So
I'm not sure it's quite that terrible.
Absent.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure it's that terrible, but the consequences of his actions spiral out of control. He repents. So when Adam and Eve are given the verdict from God on their actions, they do repent and they believe in the seed of the woman, which will be their redeemer. I think they do believe in that. So Adam is not God's enemy. He's been reconciled in some way. He hopes for that. But what has happened is that sin has got out of control now. And he can't hold, like what he originally did, the consequences can't be reined in. And he sees that his firstborn son murders his secondborn as a sign of how bad sin is now. Is that his son is effectively doing what he did towards God, which is murder. And at least in his heart. So I think that's legitimate here to some degree. Let's look to scene 2. Lady Macbeth is at least as interesting as Macbeth is, insofar as in a character study, and this is why Shakespeare is the great playwright that he is not only are his plots, full of interesting reflections on human nature and human society and proper governance, etc. They also are really good character studies, and this is a very famous female character, Lady Macbeth. Remember, she begins by being very tough. She doesn't seem to even contemplate anything other than doing a terrible action. She's very rash in her desire. She sees it as something he should do, and she does it even for his benefit. Says, well, you should do it because she's ambitious for him. And the two of them together are ambitious, and she goads him on to do the act. And the question is she not in some ways even more evil than Macbeth, because she doesn't seem to have the same restraint he does? And the answer could be yes, because she's the one who goads him to do it. But I actually think that Macbeth is far more evil because he actually knows that it's wrong and does it anyway. So he's aware that it is wrong to do it, and yet he does it. And in that sense, I still think it's like Adam and Eve. Because remember, Eve takes of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and eats it, and then she gives some to Adam, who's not been involved in the discussion. He decides to eat it as well. At least in Milton's reflection on it, he's not actually deceived in the process, and yet he still does it. Who's worse? The one who's tricked, or the one who does it in full knowledge of what the evil is? And the answer is clearly the one who knows what he's doing is more evil in his actions. I don't think people pick that up in Milton's depiction of that event. I think it's here the case though as well. Macbeth is a far worse character than Lady Macbeth. I understand that they're a married couple and the interaction between the two is interesting, but I think that he is the more evil of the two characters, precisely because he knows what's at stake. His immortal soul, the soul that he will give an account for in front of God, he is forfeiting by doing this evil act. She acts as if there's nothing more, it's just like killing an animal. Don't even worry about it. He's in your way. Get rid of him. Macbeth is not so naive. So he is worse. And what's interesting is that Macbeth, and you can look at the portrait of character here, he begins by vacillating and being very uncertain about what to do, and she has to push him to do it. And what happens after he has done it is she, who had no moral qualms about doing the action, becomes obsessed with the evil that she's done. She can't get the evil, the blood off of her hands. She becomes paralyzed by guilt. Whereas Macbeth, who begins vacillating and unsure about what to do, becomes more and more resolved then, and more dangerous. So they go in opposite directions in that sense as characters. So scene 2, Lady Macbeth and the servant. Is Banquo gone from court? Aye, madam, but returns again tonight. Say to the king, I would attend his leisure for a few words. Madam, I will. Out she goes. And Macbeth now, or Lady Macbeth, her thoughts. Naughts had, all's spent, where our desire is got without content. To safer to be that which we destroy than by destruction dwell in doubtful joy. Now Macbeth comes in. How now, my lord, why do you keep alone? Of sorriest fancies your companions making, using those thoughts which should indeed have died, with them they think on. Things without all remedy should be without regard. What's done is done. She's still worried about the fact that he has reservations and a sense of guilt. She's upset that he feels guilty. Why is she upset that he feels guilty? Because if he is plagued by guilt, she can't persuade herself that
she talked him into it, so
she feels the guilt. And if he would act like there was nothing wrong, then she could act in accordance. So she's being led by him, even though she pushed him to take the lead. She's still depending on his action. So if he will get rid of any sense of reservation, she will feel secure. And you can see a woman whose will overruled her feelings is now about to show that her feelings overrule her will, and she descends into madness. And that's one of the other interesting things in the play, is to see how immoral action leads to a state of insanity on her part. And in Macbeth, likewise, but it's not insanity as in a loss of control on his part. It's an insanity that comes through more control. Again, they're like foils for one another, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth in that sense. Okay, so what's done is done. We have scorched the snake, not killed it. She'll close and be herself, whilst our poor Malice remains in danger of her former tooth. But let the frame of things disjoint, both the worlds suffer, ere we will eat our meal in fear and sleep in the affliction of these terrible dreams that shake us nightly. Better be with the dead, whom we, to gain our peace, have sent to peace, than on the torture of the mind to lie in restless ecstasy. Duncan is in his grave. After life's fitful fever, he sleeps well. Treason has done his worst, nor steel nor poison, malice domestic, foreign levy, nothing can touch him further. Come on. And now he compares his state to Duncan's, says that Duncan has a superior state insofar as he has tranquility of mind, and he, by comparison, is in the worst state. So not only has he not gained the benefits of being king, his mind is plagued with a sense of guilt that prevents him from sleeping well. All of which unsettles her further, because they thought that by doing this one action, that would be the end of it, and then they could just go on carrying forward as if the moral order of things would function with them in charge rather than Malcolm. And instead they found that their action is now coming and consuming them. Even while they wake and even while they sleep, they're plagued by the action they committed. So in one sense, what Shakespeare is depicting here is what we read in Plato and in Scripture, that those who commit evil acts against other people are the people that are most harmed. Most harmed. That you can murder somebody else, but you are you're the victim of your own actions by murdering somebody. It destroys your sense of peace. It destroys your whole life. The only way out of it is repentance. But yes, comment or question?
This is also Dostoevsky.
Yes, it is. Absolutely, Crime and Punishment and so forth, for sure. And Dostoevsky is brilliant on this, and will explore psychologically the exact same things that are expressed here in Hamlet, or Macbeth rather. I think that's correct. And I think the reason that both Shakespeare and Dostoevsky are seen as great authors is because they explore something which we probably intuitively know, but on the canvas of their works we can see depicted for us and we find it realistic. So it's not just fictional, it's fiction that describes a reality which is all too true. So it's a warning to evil action. And yeah, great comment. So nothing can touch him further. And Lady Macbeth, come on, gentle my lord, sleek o'er your rugged looks, be bright and jovial among your guests tonight. So shall I love, and so I pray be you. Let your remembrance apply to Banquo. Present him eminence both with eye and tongue. Unsafe the while that we must lave our honors on these unflattering streams, and make our faces vizards to our hearts, disguising what they are. You must leave this. He keeps on bringing up the moral corruption within them, and she can't stand it anymore. You can see that her attempt to sort of cordon off the evil of their action, Macbeth is expressing it, and she can't handle him repeatedly raising it. And the reason why is because it's destroying her. So you must leave this. So if you were acting this on stage, you have to show a woman that's now being pained by his presence. She wants to move on, forget what's happened, as if they could start from ground zero. And Macbeth, on the other hand, can't get it out of his head, and it keeps on coming up. So, she doesn't want to be around him. He's not good company. Oh, full of scorpions is my mind, dear wife. Thou knowest that Banquo and his fleance lives. But in them nature's copies not etern. There's comfort yet. They are assailable. Then be thou jocund, ere the bat hath flown his cloistered flight, ere to black Hecate's summons the shard-born beetle with his drowsy hums hath rung night's yawning peal. There shall be done a deed of dreadful note. What's to be done? Okay, so this time we see that Macbeth is acting without Lady Macbeth and has shielded her and kept her from the intended evil. But now he's going to reveal that to her. Or he could. But he sees that his wife is becoming frail and is being affected by all this, so he tries to keep her out of it. Yes?
It's almost a falsified honor.
Yes.
Where
very good.
Yeah.
He's shielding his wife from this. You can't handle this discussion, so he's acting like a good man would be and say, these are bloody matters. These are man's matters, and I'm not going to involve you in this. Yeah, but in this case, it's a dishonorable act that he's keeping her from. Yeah. So he's using his natural courage, but for iniquitous purpose.
And it will tear her down either way. Like
she's already fallen.
Her lot's tied to him either
yes,
way, right?
either way, that's correct.
So him keeping it from her doesn't actually help her in any way.
It doesn't. But he thinks it might be. So he's acting like a virtuous gentleman by keeping her. I'm not going to mention that to you. You're not going to be able to handle it. So there's some, but I think there's intended good on his part. And this is part of a good portrait of a figure is that you have to see something of a virtuous individual presented to us. If he were wholly bad, we would not sympathize with him. We wouldn't feel the sense of loss, the slow corruption of the soul that happens in front of us. Yes.
It's even just like the ancient understanding of evil and like lies and whatnot, that they're like the version of truth rather than something of substance on their own.
Yeah, so the Boethian or the Augustinian portrait of evil is the absence of good.
Yeah.
Right? So there is no such thing as evil, but rather that what we call evil is a privation of the good. So there is good there, and the more and more that you give in to evil, the less and less good that you have. You're effectively hollowing yourself out and emptying yourself of everything good in that. And that is what Macbeth is doing.
Yeah.
But in this case, he's shielding his wife, who clearly can't go further here. I'll do it for your sake, but he's doing it against himself and effectively against her, even though he thinks he can shield her from it. He's delusional in that.
Especially men, and I'm not perfect, but especially men often, even today, he'll have some kind of debt or something. And
this is totally realistic. Men will do this for women's sake, and vice versa. They'll hide things from one another
so hard to not do it.
in the name of protecting the other person from the iniquity of the situation.
I can handle it.
I can handle it, or I'm going to do it for your sake. I'm not going to let you know. Where one of the reasons why they don't let their spouse know may be because their spouse would say, don't do that. And they don't want to be checked, right? I think that's also partly possible here, but that's not mentioned by Shakespeare. Anyway, be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed. Come, sealing night, scarf up the tender eye of pitiful day, and with the bloody and invisible hand, cancel and tear to pieces that great bond which keeps me pale. Light thickens, and the crow makes wing to the rooky wood. Good things of day begin to droop and drowse, while night's black agents to their praise do rouse. Thou marvelest at my words, but hold thee still. Things bad begun may make themselves by ill, may make strong themselves by ill. Go, prithee, go with me. So, and then move to scene 3 now. And they go out together. So again, the darkness extends. It gets worse and worse. And no sign of a countermeasure. And you ask yourself in the midst of this, where is God in the midst of all this evil action? It keeps on getting worse over the course of Act 3. And scene 3, enter the 3 murderers, or sometimes called murderers, depending on which your edition is. First murder. But who did bid thee join with us? Macbeth, says the third. Remember, we've only talked to 2. Here's a third. How did you get here? He needs not our mistrust, since he delivers our offices, and what we have to do to the discretion just. Then stand with us. The west yet glimmers with some streaks of day, now spurs the lated traveller apace to gain the timely inn, and near approaches the subject of our watch. Hark, I hear horses. Put this on. I don't know if I did, idiot. Probably turn this off. And I probably didn't turn that on either, which is doubly dumb. So the sound quality may go up on recording now. That's really super annoying. Not the first time I've done that. Now spurs the lated traveller pace to gain the timely inn, and near approaches the subject of our watch. Hark! I hear horses. And then Banquo within. Give us a light there, ho! Then 'tis he, the rest that are within the note of expectation already in the court. His horses go about. Almost a mile. But he does usually, so all men do, from hence to the palace gate, make it their walk. And then the second murder, a light, 'tis he, stand to it. It will be rain tonight. let it come down. And then all of them just assault Banquo. Oh, treachery, good fly, good Fleance, fly, fly, fly. Thou mayest revenge, O slave. And he dies and Fleance escapes, which is about the worst possible outcome here as far as Macbeth is concerned. Who did strike out the light? Was not the way. There's but one down. His son, the sun is fled. We have lost best half of our affair. Well, let's away and say how much is done. That's it. End of the scene. So Banquo is murdered, but his son escapes. And this is worse than if neither had been killed, because it's the son that will actually stand in Macbeth's place. And all they've done is added the murder of a good man to the ranks of the murdered sovereign. And now scene 4. And what we see here is the growing dis-ease within Banquo's own, or within Macbeth's own mind, because he will see the murdered Banquo come before him, the sign of his guilt. Famous scene. He's acted thus far as if he could commit the actions without any consequences for his own soul, and we find that it is not so. But we have the court, and it's a sort of an iniquitous court, a court that is drawn. So the banquet is a symbol of order. It's a symbol of a messianic banquet. It's a symbol of goodness, of delight, of pleasure, of feasting. And yet it begins with the news of the murder of Banquo. And it becomes clear that the order that is being represented by a banquet can never occur in a tyranny. At least not without violence and more violence on top of it. So the attempted restoration of order and the benefit of a virtuous life, which takes place in a banquet scene, is not there for them. And we'll find that then they can't enjoy the fruits of their iniquity. It's just, so I said, where's God in all this? And the answer is, and he deprives them of a sound mind. They can't enjoy what they've attained through iniquity. And so there's a reversal already in this. And they're being already judged by the overthrow of their minds. It will begin with Macbeth, and then it will spill over into Lady Macbeth is just a picture of insanity, famously so. But what we find is that there is a continually perpetuating process of darkness whereby Banquo fails to conquer the demons embodied in Banquo's ghost to him. And so he is defeated, by, as it were, by Banquo's ghost, even before any military loss. So this scene is rather important. So let me just read some of the scene here, and then we'll take a brief pause. So Macbeth, you know your own degrees. Sit down. At first and last, the hearty welcome. Thanks to your majesty, ourself will mingle with society and play the humble host. Our hostess keeps her state, but in best time we will require her welcome. Pronounce it for me, sir, to all our friends, for my heart speaks they are welcome. Now enter the murderer. So he wants to have a festive occasion, and it's interrupted by the murderers right away. See, they encounter thee with their hearts' thanks. Both sides are even. Here I'll sit in the midst. Be large in mirth. Anon we'll drink a measure. The table round. And then he goes to the door. There's blood upon thy face. Announces it because it's evidence. Is there actually blood on his face, or does he see blood on his face that's not there? Unclear. But probably there is blood on his face. More obvious. 'Tis Banquo's then. 'Tis better thee without than he within. Is he dispatched? My lord, his throat is cut. That I did for him. Thou art the best of the throat cutthroats, yet He's good that did the like for Fleance. If thou didst it, thou art the nonpareil. Most royal sir, Fleance is scaped. Then comes my fit again. I had else been perfect, whole as the marble, founded as the rock, as broad and general as the casing air. But now I am cabined, cribbed, confined, bound into saucy doubts and fears. But banquets safe? Ay, my good lord, safe in a ditch he bides, with 20 trenched gashes on his head, the least a death to nature. Thanks for that. There this grown serpent lies, the worms that's fled hath nature that in time will venom breed. No teeth for the present. Get thee gone. Tomorrow we'll hear ourselves again. And the murderer goes out. So they get this announcement of the evil that's been done, and then he's basically resolving to take care of Fleance another day. Reference to the poison of the serpent. Now, Lady Macbeth. My royal lord, you do not give the cheer. The feast is sold. That is not often vouched, while 'tis a making. 'Tis given with welcome. To feed we're best at home. From thence the sauce to meat is ceremony. Meeting we're bare without it. Enter the ghost of Banquo and sits in Macbeth's place. Sweet remembrancer! Now good digestions wait on appetite and health on both. And then Lennox, may it please your highness, sit. He doesn't see Banquo sitting in Macbeth's chair. Macbeth does. Does anybody else see it? And the answer is no. So then the question, which will remain unanswered in the play here, is his ghost actually present, or is what we would call his mind playing tricks on him? His guilt manifesting itself in that form. Because it's a direct response to the news that Macbeth has been slain. And here had we now our country's honor roofed, were the graced person of our Banquo present, who may I rather challenge for unkindness than pity for mischance. His absence, sir, says Rossa, lays blame upon his promise. Pleased your highness to grace us with your royal company. The table's full. Here is a place reserved, sir. Where? Here, my good lord. What is that moves your highness? Which of you hath done this? What, my good lord? Thou canst not say I did it. Never shake thy gory locks at me. And then Ross said, gentlemen, rise. His highness is not well. Sit, worthy friends. So Macbeth is so overcome by guilt that he sees something that nobody else there can see. Whether Macbeth or Banquo was actually present or not, you're going to portray it as he is present, but it's clear from the interactions that only Macbeth is able to see the ghost of Banquo here. And just like in a later scene, we're going to see that Lady Macbeth believes that there's blood on her hands and she can't cleanse the blood from them, even though there's no blood there. So she's imagining it. She can't, even within the confines of her thoughts, escape the contagion of the actions that she has committed. But at any rate, sit, worthy friend, says Lady Macbeth. My lord is often thus, and hath been from his youth. Pray, you keep seat. The fit is momentary. Upon a thought he will again be well. If much you note him, you shall offend him and extend his passion. Feed and regard him not. Are you a man? So again, always appealing him to man up. Are you a man? Aye, and a bold one that dare look on that which might appall the devil. Oh, proper stuff. This is the very painting of your fear. This is the air-drawn dagger which you said led you to Duncan. Oh, these flaws and starts, impostors to true fear, would well become a woman's story at a winter's fire, authorized by her grand dame. Shame itself. Why do you make such faces? When all's done, you look but on a stool. Prithee, see there. So she just sees an empty stool. He sees Banquo. Behold, look, lo. How say you? Why? What care I? If thou canst nod, speak too. If charnel houses and our graves must send those that we bury back, our monuments shall be the maws of kites. What? Quite unmanned in folly? Because the ghost disappears from him at that point. If I stand here, I saw him. Fie for shame! Blood hath been shed ere now in the olden time, ere humane statute purged the gentle wheel. Aye, and since too, murders have been performed too terrible for the ear. The time has been that when the brains were out, the man would die, and there an end. But now they rise again with 20 mortal murderers on their crowns, and push us from our stools. This is more strange than such a murder is. My worthy lord, your friends do lack you. She thinks he's just a little bit. Your friends do lack you. I do forget. So now he comes back to himself because Macbeth or Banquo's ghost has disappeared. So he is able to function socially again just for the time being until the ghost comes back. But the audience sees the ghost coming in and out. He's able to act with sanity while the ghost is not present. As soon as the ghost comes back, he acts like he's crazy again. So he's going to keep coming back and forth here. So here's the sane comment. I do forget. Do not muse at me, my most worthy friends. I have a strange infirmity, which is nothing to those that know me. Come, love and health to all. Then I'll sit down. Give me some wine. Fill full. Enter the ghost. I drink to the general joy of the whole table, and to our dear friend Banquo, whom we miss. Would he were here. To all and him we thirst, and all to all. Our duties and the pledge. And then when he comes in, avaunt, as in get away, ghost, and quit my sight. Let the earth hide thee. Thy bones are marrowless, thy blood is cold. Thou hast no speculations in those eyes, which thou dost glare with. And then the Lady Macbeth, who sees nothing there, just like the rest of them, is like, what do I say here? And so she says, think of this, good peers, but as a thing of custom. 'Tis no other, only it spoils the pleasure. Pleasure of the time. What man dare, I dare. Approach thou like the rugged Russian bear, the armed rhinoceros, or the Hyrcan tiger. Take any shape but that, and my firm nerves shall never tremble. Or be alive again, and dare me to the desert with thy sword. If trembling I inhabit, then protest me the baby of a girl. Hence, horrible shadow, unreal mockery. Hence, ghost goes out. Why so? Being gone, I am a man again. Pray you, sit still. And then she, you've displaced the mirth, broke the good meeting with most admired disorder. Can such things be, and overcome us like a summer's cloud without our special wonder? You make me strange even to the disposition that I owe, when now I think you can behold such sights and keep the natural ruby of your cheeks when mine are blanched with fear. What sights, my lord? I pray you speak not. He grows worse and worse. Question enrages him. Again, she's trying to cover up the whole time. At once, good night. Stand not upon the order of your going, but go at once. Good night, and better health attend his majesty. A good night, a kind good night to all. All the lords and attendants go. And just the two are left on stage. It will have blood, they say. Blood will have blood. Stones have been known to move and trees to speak. Augurs and understood relations by maggots, pies, and chuffs and rooks brought forth the secrets man of blood. What is the night? Almost at odds with morning, which is which. Now, note that the two of them have a difficulty discerning night from day, light from darkness, good from evil, which has marked the play from the beginning. There's a disturbance, a lack of moral order that is reflected everywhere in the landscape as well. Play upon that here again. Almost at odds with morning, which is which? How sayest thou that Macduff denies his person at our great bidding? Did you send to him, sir? I hear it by the way, but I will send. There's not a one of them, but in his house I keep a servant feed. I will tomorrow, and betimes I will, to the weird sisters. More shall they speak. For now I am bent to know, by the worst means, the worst. For mine own good, all causes shall give way. I am in blood stepped in so far that, should I wade no more, returning were as tedious as go o'er. Strange things I have in head, that will to hand, which must be acted ere they may be scanned. You lack the season of all natures. Sleep. Come, will to sleep. My strange and self-abuse is the initiate fear that wants hard use. We are yet but young indeed. Okay, and then we'll leave off here and break and return to the witches, because the witches are, in some sense, initiating the action and perpetuating the action. We're going to start to see the diabolical nature of the witches here, insofar as they're not only meeting on their own, but Hecate, or Hecate, is appearing with her. And Hecate, mentioned in Virgil's Aeneid, is by this point in English folklore associated with none other than Satan himself. So it's a witch, but it's a diabolical. So we have a number of demonic characters, and now we have the chief of them, chiding them for their actions, like Wormwood in Lewis's work. I'll leave it off with that, though, and we'll see you after.